Picks. I don't have a pick.
You know, guitar picks are an important thing.
Play with my fingers.
Except, oh yeah, we're doing capo too for this, aren't we?
We'll get started in just a moment. Yes, I am excited to be leading my first Simchat Shabbat. Hopefully we'll all make it out okay.
Yeah.
We got a nod of approval from Brett, or a vote of confidence, I'll say. So it is great to see all of you this morning. It's especially nice that a few weeks in now, some of your faces are starting to look familiar to me from various Zoom meetings and Zoom calls. And I had the pleasure of seeing some of you yesterday, if you made it during the drive-by for the challah pickup, despite the rain. We'll give it one more minute.
Were we debating anything last night? We're doing Rob Shabbat.
We don't have to do open up your eyes. Just go right into Shabbat.
We could do it. What is this? B'nai Jeshurun?
Oh, that was me, John.
So Dan and Barry, are we ready to begin?
Are we ready?
More or less.
More or less, okay. Great. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's wonderful to see all of you this morning. It's nice to be with you. This is one of those Shabbats that has actually another name. In addition to the Shabbat when we begin reading the final book of the Torah, Deuteronomy, or Devarim in Hebrew, the Shabbat also has a special name called Shabbat Chazon. Chazon is Hebrew for vision. And this is one of the special Shabbatot during the summer. What makes this one special is that it is the Shabbat that precedes Tisha B'Av, which falls this week begins on Wednesday night. For many of us in the Reform, I would say that the Reform movement over the years has had sort of a tenuous relationship with Tisha B'Av. Most synagogues did not, when I was growing up at least, did not observe Tisha B'Av, and it was relegated to something that campers did at Jewish camps, usually marked by a barbecue. But now we've decided to make Tisha B'Av part of our yearly cycle of observances. And so this weekend, the Shabbat preceding Tisha B'Av sort of gets us ready for that. And it is Shabbat Chazon, which means vision, and it comes from the Haftorah for this week, which is from the prophet Isaiah, who admonished us to cease to do evil and learn to do good. Actually, I think there's a contemporary spin that we could put on the idea of a Shabbat of vision. Certainly these days, a lot of us are seeing things that we may not have ever seen before, and maybe our vision is becoming clearer right now. So with that, it's wonderful to worship with you this morning, I'm very excited to be leading not only with Barry Merrer, but with Dan Merrer, which is a treat for me. Dan and I know each other from Camp Harlem. So with that, Dan and Barry, let's welcome Shabbat this morning. Thank you. We may not be all in the same space, but I don't know about you, but that music filled my heart. Hold on one second. Having some, there we go. I enter this sacred space to voice the longings of my heart in prayer. In sacred company, I offer my love to the Holy One. I devote myself this morning to psalm and song, study and prayer. May my heart be lifted, may my thoughts be deepened, and may my soul, like the eagle, soar. I invite you as we enter into the morning blessings. If you would like to send Shabbat greetings in the chat box, please feel free to do so. If someone would like to read this reading for us, please feel free to request to unmute yourself, and you could read the English for us. Any volunteers?
What?
Blessed are you. I'll read it in. Let's see. Okay, Brett. Let me just find you here. And we'll unmute you. I think you're unmuted.
There we go. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Blessed to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wonders.
Thank you.
Adonai, Rofei Kol Basar, Umafli La'asot.
Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. La'asok 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 b'divrei Torah. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Elohim. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Elohim. Gibur Amayim Ugilut Hasadim V'Hashkaman Ve'Hamidrash Shacharit Ve'Arvim Edu Devarim she'en lahem shiur. Edu Devarim she'en lahem shiur. Edu Devarim she'en lahem shiur. Elohim. V'Hachnasat Orkim U'Vikor Kodim V'Hachnasat Kala U'Mayavim Ve'yum Tilah Ve'yum Tilah Ve'hava Shalom Bein Adam le'Havero Talmud Torah keneged kulam, Talmud Torah keneged kulam, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. Edu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Edu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Edu devarim she'en lahem shiur. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot leHadonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot leHadonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. Lord, she
לשמך עליון, וזמר לשמך עליון, וזמר לשמך עליון.
We continue with the Chatzi Kaddish. Barry, will you lead us?
Yes, we will lead you.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, Be'amad yivrach hirtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayichon yomechon, u'chayi l'chol Beit Yisrael, Hagala b'hagala, u'visman kari, v'imeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach, Ve'olma me'omaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, Yitbarach, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitzadar, V'yitzalev, V'yitzalav, Shmei Kedusha V'rechu, Leila Minchol V'chata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata, Damiram Le'alma, Emeru, Amen.
If you are comfortable, please rise for the Baruch Hu.
Yai, Adonai HaTorah Le'olam va'ed Le'olam Le'olam
We continue in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh reshit. Ma'arabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita. Mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu. Al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha sela. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. Once or twice in a lifetime, a man or woman may choose a radical leaving. Having heard Lech Lecha, go forth, God disturbs us toward our destiny by hard events and by freedom's now urgent voice, which explode and confirm who we are. We don't like leaving, but God loves becoming. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael, ba'ahava.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love we have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know that you are Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Yisrael, Adonai. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושופטך וקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
The poet Ruth Sohn writes, "To take the first step, to sing a new song, is to close one's eyes and dive into unknown waters, for a moment, knowing nothing, risking all, but then to discover. The waters are friendly, the ground is firm, and the song rises again. Out of my mouth come words lifting the wind, and I hear, for the first, the song that has been in my heart, silent, unknown, even to me."
שיר אחד אשך שינתו גאולים ושמחה שמחיה יחד כולם בואו והמלכו ואמרו אדוני לו לעולם ועד אדוני לו לעולם ועד. ישראל, ובקהינו בך יהודה וישראל. טוב עלינו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, קהל ישראל. Ufi Agni Tegilate Ata Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Mahanorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei HaKol V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot U'mevi Geulah Lifnei V'neihem V'man Shemo V'Ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia Morid Hatam Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofech Olim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Micha Mocha Bal Geburot Umido Melach Melech Meimit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Ata L'chayot HaKol Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol. Mekadesh et Shimcha ba'olam Yeshem shemagdishim אותו משמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקראת זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות אלוהים כל הארץ כבודו אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו אדיר שמך לכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו ומלכנו הוא מושיענו ואלוהים ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גדולך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש בשמך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני האל אדוני.
Can you go to the next slide? Thank you.
ישמחו למלכותך שומרי שבת ישמחו למלכותך בקוראי עונג ישמחו למלכותך שומרי שבת ישמחו ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה, זכר למעשה בראשית. ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה, זכר למעשה בראשית. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך בקוראי עונג, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שבת, ישמחו במלכותך בקוראי עונג.
Abraham Joshua Heschel writes, "In prayer, there is the danger of relying on the word, of depending upon the text, of forgetting that the word is a challenge to the soul rather than a substitute for the outburst of the heart. The text must never be more important than inner devotion. The life of prayer depends not so much upon loyalty to custom as upon inner participation, not so much upon the length as upon the depth of the service. There is a classic principle," he writes, in regard to prayer. "Better is a little with inner devotion than much without it."
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חיים וחסד ורחמים. 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 כל ישראל עמך, ברכנו יוצאנו, כולנו כאחד באור פניך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, ועם חסד ורחמים. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, ועם חסד ורחמים. כי באור פניך נתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, תורת חיים, ואהבת חסד, צדקה וברכה, ורחמים וקרבות. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, עם החסד ורחמים. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, עם החסד ורחמים. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה לשלומך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, עם החסד ורחמים. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, עם החסד ורחמים.
You may be seated, and we take a moment for a silent prayer.
Why would they?
עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל באמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל באמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל באמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל באמרו אמן. באמרו אמן.
In just a moment, we will have an opportunity to join together for the reading of Torah. But before we read this beautiful kavanah, this intention for reading of the Torah, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, bless our efforts to mark this week's Torah portion, to steep ourselves in its lessons, to live lives of Torah, albeit without the presence of our holy Sefer Torah, Torah scroll. We take solace that our Torah scrolls are safe in our communal home, Temple Emanu-El. We strive to be safe and keep those we love and our neighbors safe by staying in our homes. We may be physically distant from our Torah scroll, but may we never be spiritually distant. We dedicate today's reading to our past, our ancestors who fought to sustain our rights, traditions, narratives, and people, even in dark times, to our present, to this community, which continues to treasure the teachings of our people, to our future, when we will be reunited physically with our Torah scrolls, God willing, in health, safety, and peace. Today, we dedicate the reading of our Torah to, and I thought we would take a moment to all see each other. And if there is someone that you would like to, or something that's on your mind that you would like to dedicate this week's Torah reading to, I invite you to unmute yourselves and to share a word with us. Anyone?
Our community.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you, David. Well, now that we can see each other, it's my pleasure. Jonathan, were you going to say something? No? Oh, sorry. Well, now that we can all see each other, I want to introduce Cantor Anna Ott to everyone, since we can all see her. Cantor Ott is going to chant some verses of Torah for us. So, Cantor, do you want to introduce the portion and then
Yes.
we'll go to the text?
Okay. So today we begin the book of Deuteronomy with Parshat Devarim, which begins the second telling and recalling the history of the children of Israel, leading to their present location on the threshold of the promised land. In the midst of recollections of conquests and travels and, not heeding the laws and other assorted misbehaviors, Moses does take a quick moment to say, and you also developed a judiciary, a system of impartial judgment, which is, to me, one of the Jewish people's most important contributions to human civilizations. So I'm going to read about that moment right here. That would be Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 12 through 18.
Eicha esa levadi, terachem u'masachem derivchem, havu lachem, anashim chachamim u'nevonim, viduim l'shiftechem, v'asimem v'roshechem, v'tanu oti, v'tomru, טוב הדבר שדיברת לעשות, ויקח את ראשי שבטיכם, אנשים חכמים וידועים, ותן אותם וראשים עליכם, שרי אלפים ושרי מאות, ושרי 50, ושרי עשרות, ושוטרים לשבטיכם, ויצווה את שופטיכם, בעת ההיא לאמור, שמוע בין אחיכם, ושפטתם צדק, בין איש ובין אחיו ובין גרו, לא תכירו פנים במשפט, כקטון כגדול תשמעון, לא תגורו מפני איש, כי המשפט לאלוהים הוא, והדבר אשר יקשה מכם, תקרבון אליי ושמעתיו, וצווה אתכם בעת ההיא את כל הדברים אשר תעשו.
Thank you, Cantor Ott. Yasher Koach. So a few words this morning about Deuteronomy, or Devarim, as it's called in Hebrew. We consider this the repetition in some ways of the Torah, or the second telling, as Cantor Ott said earlier. I personally don't think that Deuteronomy gets all of the respect it deserves. First of all, goes from being a man who does not want to speak to getting an entire book. Quite an accomplishment. And we think of the book as Moses's farewell speech, but it is actually more than that. First of all, it's about monotheism. The Shema, which we chanted earlier, is in the book of Deuteronomy. This book also looks toward life in Israel. They are, as we have said, literally on the verge of entering into the promised land. And so Deuteronomy offers us many new commandments. In fact, 70 new commandments come out of the book of Deuteronomy. We find concern for the poor and the disadvantaged, laws for mezuzot, tefillin, tzitzit, the Shabbat Kiddush, and the blessings after the meals are based on verses from Deuteronomy. But since this is Moses's book, as we say, he gets to tell it the way he sees it. Sometimes one might think he's rewriting history a little bit, or at least presenting the past the way he might remember it. Don't we all do that? I remember that my mother and her sisters all lived in different cities, and I would love those rare occasions when they were all together, and they would reminisce about their childhoods. Needless to say, they would each remember things differently. Who they imagined their father favored, which girlfriend dated which boy, and who was the smartest. And we see this even in Deuteronomy. Moses remembers things in a different light than we may have actually encountered them when we first read them. So for example, he recalls it as being his idea to pick judges amongst the people, when it was actually the idea of Jethro, his father-in-law, who came up with that idea. And then also in this portion, a little bit later on, Moses, who is recalling a lot of the history of the Israelites' journey through the wilderness, remembers the issue, the Torah portion with the spies, when the spies went out to see the land that they were coming to. And Moses sort of blames the Israelites for his not being able to cross over into the promised land, for the Israelites' concern that they would not be able to conquer those across the border, when it was probably a lot of other things that contributed to Moses' not making it into the promised land. So as I thought about this, and I thought about my own experiences with how I might remember things or others might remember things, I was wondering if there were if there was anyone here who had any thoughts about how memory works and about how they may have remembered things differently than other people. I certainly know that there has been a lot of modern psychology devoted to how spouses sometimes remember things differently from each other. Some of you may be nodding knowingly about that when one spouse says one thing and another spouse remembers it quite differently. So I was wondering if anyone wanted to share any of their own thoughts about that. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Rabbi?
Yes.
It's Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Obviously, it would, given how long Ronnie and I are married, it would take the rest of the weekend for us to talk about how many times we remembered things differently. But I would like to suggest that I'm not sure that this is Moses's memory, but he has a purpose here. His purpose is to take Egypt, he's already taken the Israelis out of Egypt. He now needs to take Egypt out of the Israelis, where they lived in Egypt, where the Pharaoh did everything. Through the wilderness, Moses did everything. He's now trying to tell them, you have to do everything. Our society is not going to be a top-down society, but a society where everyone has to contribute.
Mark, thank you. I think that's a great take, and I love the idea of taking Egypt out of the Israelites as much as taking the Israelites out of Egypt. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share a thought about memory or the role that memory might have played?
Rabbi?
Yes, Sharon, go ahead.
I find, so having grown up before we had phones on our camera and everywhere, I find the photo albums that my mom put together so valuable, because those are the things that I remember. And she even put like little notes about stuff on with a little piece of tape, because that's how old I am. But I mean, I wish I had more pictures because I'm visual. And so I know my memories would be so much richer, but I love, and kind of to follow up to your story, from last Friday, about going on the trip and all, it just, those pictures and those visual images are so powerful. And then when you can find the words to go with them, it makes it richer.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I certainly know that now in my own generation, my brother and I will often go through photo albums and we'll see pictures of relatives, I don't know, a couple of generations ago, and we have no idea who they are. And we sort of make it up as we go along, trying to imagine how they were related or who they were. So thank you all for beginning our study of the book of Deuteronomy with me this week. I'm looking forward to the following weeks, the coming weeks, when we will continue this this journey. I will share my screen with all of you so that we can continue with the Mishaberach. This week, we are praying for the health and well-being of Zalman Ben Dina, Gabby Kraft Buckman, Aaron Taylor, Susan Robb, Linda Rubino, Arlene Furman, David Bregman, Rabbi Rob Nosenchuk, Neil Silverman, Susan Klein, Linda Fleischer, Don Hirsch, Martin Ostroff, Sharon Nice, Pearl Weitzman, Summer Curter, Mason Rockmore, Emily Tucker, Bernie Weinstein, Larry Maslow, Perry Shellman, Barry Sakowitz, Rochelle Spurgell, Martin Spurgell, Mike Blumenfeld, Somsai Bellamy, Clive Brown, Marcia Brown, Marissa Fisher, Andy Sitkuris de Oreo, Kathleen Murphy, Nicasio Gratina, Artie Lerner, Stacy Whitfeld, Nate Maslow, Shirley Rosenberg, Isaac Peck, Lawrence Zinstein, and Barbara Puglisi. And I invite you to share in the chat box the names of those who are in your hearts and minds today as you're praying for their well-being. And we'll continue with the Mishaberach.
Of strength, who bless the Lord before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
And from the chat box, we are keeping in our hearts and minds Bernard Greenwald, Claude Blaise, Dan Riley, and Judge Salas and her family, Abe and Carol Braffman, Luke Chang, Susie Kiki, Cheryl Oberman, Phil Levine, C.T. Rattan, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We continue at the Aleinu. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kugayei haratzot, v'lo samanu b'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
You may be seated. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God in each hour of the 24, and each moment then. In the faces of men and women, I see God, and in my own face in the glass. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come forever and ever. As I read the list of those who we are remembering this week and at this time of the year, again, I invite you to put in the chat box the names of those whom you are thinking about this morning. We recall the loved ones who have died in the last 30 days. Harold Krevsky, Jeffrey Carlin, Robert Itzkin, Stephanie Popper, Dorothy Uchin, and Ron Esserman. And we remember those who died at this season in years past. Paul Alderis, Sheldon Altman, Michelle Bass, Reuven Bach, Jerome Berg, Drew Berry, Pearl Biagoli, Natalie Biskier, Sydney Bogan, Rose Brown, Francis Burns, Herman Cantor, Ruben Finkelstein, Samuel Fogelman, Heidi Fox, Doris Frund, Paul Friedman, Rebecca Gelfand, Selma Goldenberg, Cynthia Green, Israel Greenspan, Essie Gross, Frank Harriton, Peter Hubner, Ida Hyman, Irving Kaplan, Isidore Katz, Robert Katz, Irma Keat, John Kielsinski, Samuel Colton, Lily Kornblum, Donald Cooperschmidt, William Lafkowitz, Bernard Levitow, Norman McCronsky, Sarah Mason, May Neese, Nathaniel Newmark, Mildred Platt, Miriam Rappaport, Robert Reich, Sam Reiter, Francis Roberts, Robert Rose, William H. Rosie, Enid Rosenblum, Andrea Rosenstein, Joseph Rosenthal, Gloria Rosenzweig, Philip Rosenzweig, Robert Saltstein, Richard Schneiderman, Fred Schwartz, Michael Sigmund, Helen Silver, Oscar Sokolow, Sarah Sovlinsky, Rusty Tice, Mildred Wasserman, Nettie Waters, Stuart Weiss, Jean Whalen, Sarah Zemsky, and from our chat box, Daniel Anderl, Penny Manzio, Michael Manning, Theodore C.J. And I know many are remembering Congressman John Lewis this week. Please rise as we join together in the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei rabbah, bi'alma divrach irtei bi'amlich malchutei, b'chayachon uvyomachon, uv'chaye duchol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'elam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei gedusha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim alinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, alenu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. You may be seated. Before we conclude with our closing song, just wanted to remind everyone that this week we will be observing Tisha B'Av on Wednesday night with a service at 8 o'clock. And on Thursday night at the end of Tisha B'Av, also at 8, I believe, we'll be joining some of our local other congregations in the area for a study session and brief Ma'ariv service. Our closing song is Od Yavo, and it's pretty simple. So Actually, I'm going to stop the screen share so that we can all see each other for a little bit while we join together.
Shalom Aleinu, Oyevo Shalom Aleinu, Oyevo Shalom Aleinu, Ke'akulam. Oyevo Shalom Aleinu, Oyevo Shalom Aleinu, Oyevo Shalom Aleinu, Ke'akulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam, Salam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam, Salam. Od yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam, Salam. Salam, Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam, Salam. Oyavo Shalom Aleinu, Oyavo Shalom Aleinu, Oyavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Oyavo Shalom Aleinu, Oyavo Shalom Aleinu, Oyavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam.
You're muted.
I'm the rabbi who forgot to unmute himself. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. It was wonderful to see all of you. And for me, it was definitely a treat to lead this morning with Barry and with Dan. I was so excited when Barry told me that Dan would be joining us. So for me, that was a real treat. And I hope it was for all of you. The music was quite lovely this morning. So feel free to unmute yourselves and say Shabbat Shalom before we go, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
And thank you, Cantor Ott, for chanting for us this morning.
Anytime.
Hey, Barry, I'm glad you had your sidekick with you today. I'm glad you had your sidekick with you today.
Oh yes, I mean I'm much better with a wingman, so you know, if I can have him here all the time, that's great.
Yep.
Saw a visit from a cat there too, Barry.
Sorry?
We saw a visit from your cat as well.
What, really? I didn't. Was there a cat on the
Yeah,
street?
he was walking behind.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's actually Dan's cat, actually.
Okay. What a beautiful way to start the day. Nice to see everybody.
It's awesome.
Who did the adaptation for Yismahu? That was really nice.
That's
I like that.
our old friend Jeff Klepper.
It was beautiful.
It's really, it's like as old as dirt, that one, actually.
And Brett, I love the hand motions for Odyavo.
Yeah, my kids are from Camp Yahad, so they always do all that stuff. So.
It reminded me of being back at camp too.
Right, it looks like a beautiful day in Vermont too.
It is beautiful to be in Vermont on a day of peace, in my peaceful place.
Well,
Thanks, Brad.
it's going to be very warm here in New Jersey, but I have to say it was a little overcast. And just as we were saying Yotzer Or, the blessing after the Baruch for the daylight, the sun seemed to come out in perfect timing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day down here in Atlanta today. Humid, but beautiful sun. So,
Good.
which means I'll be inside all afternoon. Oh, wait, I'm going to be inside all afternoon anyway, whatever.
Yeah, how's it going in Atlanta?
We're ridiculous. We're not doing well.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry.
We're just, maybe eventually the governor will figure it out, but we don't really have any hope.
Yeah.
Please stay safe down there, Sharon.
Yep. I'm not going anywhere. I'm lucky my job lets me work from home and I
Good.
don't need to go anywhere, and I don't.
Good. Stay safe.
My big gratitude for this week is Murphy letting us have the remote school option.
There are people down here in Georgia that are protesting. They want schools fully open.
I mean, I understand it if there's low spread, and I understand people do need to work, and if you can't put food on the table, like that's a huge problem too. But I'm just like glad that we have options, that there's potential that people can go, people can be remote. And also if people have to send their kids, the more people who can keep their kids at home, it'll make it safer for the people who really need to send them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an equity issue because not every kid has the same access at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Be able to fully participate remotely. And so there's so much, it's so, I just wish that this country had done a better job in the past 5 months, and then potentially we wouldn't be having to have this conversation.
I agree. What scares me is the like fictitious news, because I work for Merck, so I get my information directly. And like when Betsy DeVos gets up there and says like kids are stoppers of it, that is not true. And parents need like legitimate information to be able to make decisions that are good for them.
Well, in the CDC, the way they published their guides to reopening, it was.
Yeah.
I will support whoever does whatever they want to do, however they need to do it, because I don't have kids and I'm not an educator. I just wish we had figured this out 5 months ago.
Well, we can't go backwards. We can only go forwards. So hopefully, I don't think this is going to be solved quickly. So hopefully we will keep trying till we can get this all right and keep everyone safe. And I don't know.
So changing the topic for some good news.
Yes.
For those of you who know Adam and John, their
Yes.
daughter Lana is 1 year old today.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Wonderful.
So they're having a small socially distanced gathering later.
The other good news.
You guys are neighbors, right?
I'm sorry?
You guys are neighbors, aren't you?
Well, no longer. They sold the house. So now they live up on Prospect, but they have a beautiful house with a pool. So it's a pool party.
Ah.
Nice.
The other good news this week, which does seem insignificant in everything, but it was nice to have baseball back in some form.
I see Sharon's all suited up.
That's what I did. Yes, it is.
Sharon, did you buy one of those $86 cutouts?
I got the email yesterday that my cutout is getting put somewhere. So now I just have to scan the stands virtually to find it.
How do they decide which ones get put out on what days, or did they just all stay there?
They all stay there.
Did you see all of them in Dodger Stadium? There were hundreds of them. They raised a lot of money for the foundation.
Will they send you a picture of your cutout in a seat?
No, they won't, but you can find it. And then the Braves are doing it as well. So a lot of the ballparks are doing it where you can, for whatever donation, it was $86, you do a little cutout of yourself, you send up a load of picture, and then you're going to be sitting there for the entire year. And it's so funny. It's like, like, well, what happens if it rains? And I'm like, well, I sent my cutout with an umbrella, didn't you?
Right. If it rains, everyone's going to start getting literally limp.
They did them so that they would actually last for the year. They're not out of cardboard.
Maybe they're on those lawn sign materials, you know, corrugated lawn sign plastic.
So I got an email yesterday that mine is ready and it is being placed. So I will intently watch the game today.
Oh, that's cool.
Because it's a Braves broadcast, and search for me.
And they are foundations.
Yes.
They're not raising money for the teams. These are
No.
all for the teams foundations that support the community.
Right, at least for the Mets. The Mets, the 86 was obviously a World Series reference, but it was
But
going.
they should have other ones for the 6 days. They'll also sell them for $69.
Right. Right.
No, they did it for
$73.
But yeah, but a lot of the teams are doing it. And it makes it more interesting than just looking at empty seats.
Yeah.
Could you pick which section you're in?
No, unless you, for the Mets, if you were a member of the 7-Line Army, which is the group that sits in the back in all the orange, they all went, anybody who did it for the 7-Line Army, they all went to the 7-Line Army spot. But everybody else, I guess if you had season tickets like
Right.
But the rest of us are just random, so.
They should put you in your season tickets in your location.
Well, for the Dodgers, the Loge is less of a I think it's $300 to be behind the dugout. Tommy Lasorda's photo's right behind it. And then further up, it costs less of a contribution.
Yeah,
So-
no, if I had mine where I had my plan tickets, I was like way, way, way up there. Nobody was ever gonna see me. So, yeah, so I'm gonna record the game today, and that way I can scan. You do a pretty good job though, like posting.
I have to mention this to the patron office at the opera. They're missing a big opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, do you know if the Red Sox are doing it?
the Red Sox are doing it too, right?
They are?
I don't know. I thought people this morning, some of the Killington people were saying that they were watching the game in the empty stands. So I don't know.
Maybe
I
this-
heard they have a
maybe
big Black
people should
Lives
do it.
Matter billboard or something set up.
They did the Black Lives Matter on the back of the Green Monster. It's really
Was that what they did?
cool. Really cool. But
I was driving up last night, so I didn't get to watch.
I didn't. This is the first I heard of the cutouts. That's cool.
So
I
the
didn't look into that.
temple, maybe the temple should do that and like, do a service in the temple streaming.
Yes.
And you see, but you don't see faces. You just see the backs of everyone's heads.
A High Holy Day fundraiser?
Right.
So you see
Well,
the back of everyone's head, from the shot from behind.
Synagogues used to sell tickets, and you could pay more to sit in certain sections. So maybe that's a fundraiser.
Some still do, actually.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I know. And
I've
which
made the
service?
mistake of sitting in the wrong seats.
Oh, and I'm sure you were told that you were in the wrong seat.
That's not an outlandish idea, just to put cutouts in the synagogue.
Right.
You could get a reserved seat for your little plastic car.
I've heard worse
Like
ideas.
for your little kid's plastic car, they could have a reserved high holiday parking spot.
Right.
Dave, I'll send you the link because it really does make it much more interesting to at least watch the game and there's like faces.
Definitely. I want to
Oh,
see.
and some of the teams are letting you bring your pets. You can.
Yeah, some of them you can do. The Braves are doing it, and then Dave, you'll appreciate this. Chipper Jones
Yeah.
bought for the Mets. He bought one for him and one for his son Shay.
Isn't it? Yeah, I thought it was.
That's great.
Yeah, so like they were posting that all over social media because in Atlanta Braves, he named his son Shay because he liked playing at Shay, so he bought two for Shay. What will be interesting to see if there's also one at Truist Park for him as well.
Guys, I'm dropping off, but I want to say goodbye.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Barry.
Chat with everyone.
See you in
Shabbat
2 weeks.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Wonderful.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.